Professional wrestling is such an interesting sport to be a fan of because in a world of subjectivity, there is absolutely no clear-cut best or worst anything. Someone might think that one of the matches between Kenta Kobashi and Mitsuharu Misawa is the greatest match of all time. Some might think a match like John Cena versus CM Punk is. Someone might think a wrestler like Kenny Omega is one of the greatest of all time. Someone else might think someone like AJ Styles. Some might think that Jinder Mahal had the worst world title reign in pro wrestling history, and those people are fucking wrong. The point is that everybody's taste is different, and what you might not like, someone else might really dig, and that's the beauty of the sport. As the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, so it's really difficult to find something that fans can really unite on and unanimously declare as the best or worst of a specific thing in this industry. That is, until today. There is a match out there, despite its clear upside and comedic value, that truly does have a serious case for being the absolute worst match in the history of professional wrestling, and that is what we will be discussing in today's video. This was a part of a poll that I held in my community tab, and is currently tied with Kana versus Minoru Suzuki, the tightest poll I have ever had on this channel. I decided to make this first and Kana Suzuki later, so keep your eyes peeled for that, and if you would like to influence any future videos, keep an eye out. If you do enjoy this video and you want to see more videos about all the random and cool stuff that comes from pro wrestling, be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And with that being said, let's get right into it.
And he's going to give you, the fans, a quick lesson in anatomy, sir.
Meet One Warrior Nation. This is a little awkward because there really isn't much known about the person in question other than the fact that his name is Dominic and that he completely took his wrestling gimmick from the Ultimate Warrior. From his gear to his face paint to the theme song that they share to the cadence. His entire career was based off of Warrior. Even his name, One Warrior Nation, was a name used by Warrior for a stable that he was a part of in WCW. Warrior even reached out to the guy and threatened legal action if he didn't stop, which never ended up going down, obviously. As far as his wrestling style goes, he tries his absolute best to emulate the Warrior style, but it doesn't really have the same effect. It feels like you're watching a Warrior match at 0.5 speed if Warrior lived like 15 years longer than he actually did, and the steroid bloating was even more obvious. He started wrestling in 2007 when he was around 43 to 44 years old, and has wrestled a documented 26 matches in that span, with his last known match taking place in 2013. According to Cage Match, he's wrestled the likes of Jay Lethal, DJ Hyde, and the Colony from Chikara, which consisted of Orange Cassidy and Drew Gulak in this instance, and won over all of them, except for Jay Lethal, thankfully. In only his 11th match in wrestling, he would receive a shot at his first, quote, world title, end quote. And that is what's going to lead as a segue to our next subject. If you thought this guy was interesting, wait until you hear more about his opponent.
Ich werde zuschlagen und ich werde gewinnen! Ja!
Meet Eddie Steinblock. With a career spanning 37 years and wrestling at least 425 matches throughout, Steinblock looks like Bruno Sammartino compared to our other competitor. I mentioned how the upcoming match is for a world title. Well, Steinblock is the first and longest reigning world champion in the history of his own promotion, European Professional Wrestling, where he held the World Heavyweight Championship for an astonishing 4,737 days in a single reign. Longer than Bruno, longer than Backlund, longer than Hogan, longer than Roman. Everyone, this is your tribal chief now. Seriously though, he kept his own world title on himself for 13 years without break. Fun fact, he went over on Terry Funk to win that title. I am not bullshitting you in the slightest when I say that, by the way. The history books have Eddie Steinblock beating Terry Funk for a world title. He also has wins over talent like Rhino, Colt Cabana, Gangrel, and even a DQ win over Masahiro Chono. So, with all this talent that he's easily beating, Steinblock is looking for even more credible wins to cement his legacy as one of the greatest champions in the history of this great sport. He scours the world, desperate and hungry for that next great challenger, and it's then and only then that he comes across our protagonist from before, One Warrior Nation, who so graciously accepts Steinblock's challenge for a world title match. Obviously, that all came from my very sleep-deprived version of myself in an attempt to improvise, as I have zero fucking clue if there is even any story as to how this match came to be publicly. All we know is that it happened, and that is what we are all here to bear witness to. The match took place on February 7th, 2010, and emanated from the oh boy, Burgersaal in Deutschland. So sorry if I butchered that. With all that out of the way, let's get into this match. Steinblock makes his entrance to this Clash of the Titans, coming out to We Will Rock You by Queen, as One Warrior Nation comes out to his signature theme by Jim Johnston. Warrior is donning a custom big gold belt with a white strap, and I'm not really too sure what the relevance is there, but he does have it. Warrior walks up and starts talking shit to Steinblock before the ref backs him up as they begin playing the US and German national anthems respectively. The bell rings as both men in top physical shape circle around each other. Eddie briefly gets the crowd to chant his name. Both men finally lock walk up, there's a stalemate, and Warrior barks at Steinblock. Pacing around the ring yet again, they lock up yet again, another stalemate, and Steinblock does a little dance. They lock up once again, but Steinblock actually wins the exchange, gets Warrior into a headlock and grinds it out Randy Orton style. Warrior sends him into the ropes, bounces off the rope near him, and both collide with a shoulder block where neither man is afflicted. Warrior delivers a kick to the midsection and begins to display some of that technical prowess that would make Zack Sabre Jr. or Jonathan Gresham quake in their boots. Eddie slowly gets to his feet as Warrior continues to work that arm. Eddie backs Warrior into the corner to get out of the hold and teases a punch, but backs away as the two begin to circle around each other one again. Again, collar and elbow, but this time Warrior gets whipped into the ropes, ducks some offense before eating an unironically stiff clothesline from Steinblock. Steinblock cranks the neck of Warrior to wear him down as the crowd chants Eddie, I don't know how. Eddie gives Warrior a deadly neck massage and neck crank before working the arm of Warrior with the top rope. This was a mistake, as this is all Warrior needed to begin hulking up with his trademark enthusiasm. They circle the ring again. Warrior goes for multiple lariats as Steinblock eats the first one and ducks the second. After another aura off, Warrior kicks Eddie in the stomach and sends him into the turnbuckle where he delivers a splash into the corner. Warrior is pretty out of breath here as he goes to work on both the arm and midsection of Steinblock before the ref waves him off. Steinblock and Warrior gets into a battle of strength and Steinblock gets caught in a bear hug by Warrior. He even presumably taps if you take a look here, but Warrior doesn't relent. Eddie finally gets out of it via Mongolian chop. Steinblock hits a snapmare and goes for the pin to get the 1 count. Warrior rolls out of the ring as the ref begins his count. Warrior hulks up from the crowd as he re-enters the ring, only to eat some boots from Steinblock. Steinblock hits some chops to Warrior and attempts to whip him into the corner, but Warrior counters, hits a running shoulder block, whips Eddie into the opposite corner, and goes for an attack, but eats a boot for his troubles. Eddie gets him up and sets him up for his finisher, known as the Eddie-gree, an obvious play on words of the pedigree. Warrior falls down, and Eddie goes for the pin to get the 3 count and continue his historic reign as champion, and the match is over. Thank fuck. Where do I begin? With how I've been talking about this matchup to this point, it's no surprise that this wasn't an all-timer, but I don't think I fully realized how ass this would be. It's obvious that both of these guys aren't in tip-top condition at a respective 47 and 54 years of age, and a lot of times in matches like this, it's funny enough to justify its existence, but this is not an example of one of those types of matches. Really slow, really sloppy, half of this 7-minute match were rest holds in a really weird dynamic where you didn't know who was playing what role. It felt completely all over the place and not even in a fun way. There's fun bad like watching Scary Movie or a superhero spoof, and then there's bad that's not even enjoyable. I personally still can't get over the guy creating his own promotion to win a world title and hold it so long to book himself to go over an Ultimate Warrior cosplayer. Jeff Jarrett eats a lot of shit for giving himself the NWA world title as many times as he did in a 4-year span. He has absolutely nothing on Eddie Steinblock though. Despite everything I said, there are 2 things that pop me in this match. A stiff-ass clothesline by Steinblock and that half-hearted pedigree that Warrior jumped the gun on. Other than that, there really isn't much left to say. What's that one Brian Alvarez clip?
-5 stars!
Following this, One Warrior Nation wrestled 14 more matches between 2010 and 2013, and apparently hasn't wrestled since. I've heard different reports about what he's done post-wrestling, most notably as a prison guard, but I cannot confirm that. However, it does say on his Instagram that he owns Venom Fitness, a combat sports training facility in Sarasota, Florida. If it's the same one and the dates align, it's the same Venom Fitness in Sarasota that was owned by Lance Goodall, who faced accusations of inappropriate conduct with a 14-year-old boy before ultimately taking his own life. That last detail is not at all relevant to Warrior, just something I found while doing research. I followed his Instagram in an attempt to get his recollection of the match and about what he's doing now, but he's on private and hasn't accepted my request as of this recording. If he ever stumbles across this, feel free to accept my follow on there or just leave a comment under here if you're interested. As for Eddie Steinblock, he wrestled until 2017, working between 2 to 6 matches a year until he unfortunately passed away on November 9th, 2017 at the age of 61. It's been reported that he succumbed to an unknown illness and there really hasn't been any update on that since. Following his death, the world title was vacated and declared inactive, ensuring that Steinblock's lone reign of 12 years, 11 months, 3 weeks, and 6 days would be the only reign in the history of that particular world title. His son Andre currently runs the EPW promotion, and they have since created a new world championship. A man who would only lose his title in death. There will never be another like him. But yeah, that was the story of One Warrior Nation, Eddie Steinblock, and the worst match in wrestling history. What did you think? Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you thought about this video, as I look for all feedback, positive or negative. If you did enjoy it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already, so you do not miss out on any future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.